All right, so this episode's about wholesalers and why they are full of crap, why you should avoid them, how to avoid them, and what to look out for. Whether you're a seller, a buyer, or someone who is seeing kind of these advertisements on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, you know, start off with $1,000 and become a wholesaler making six figures every month, blah, 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 blah. All right. Here's why there are better ways to make, you can make money doing wholesaling. That's not what I'm saying. But I think it's a bad way of making money. And I want to be able to explain to you why, how to protect yourself from them as a seller, especially. They're the primary victim. And even as a buyer, how you could end up involved in a wholesale transaction without realizing it. All right, so let's dive into it. Why wholesalers are full of crap. And obviously, this is a very contentious statement. There's a lot of like wholesaling classes and programs online and blah, blah, blah. They're full of crap, man. It's a terrible way to make your money. You add no value to the market. I'm going to explain all of that and how to look out for these things, okay? So let's dive in. So, let me pull up this first. All right. So, most of the time, wholesalers are pretending they're these guys. They're pretending to be this guy. Okay? The whole entire premise and start begins on a lie, and it begins on a disingenuine expectation that's built up. Okay? So most of the time, a wholesaler is profiling and preying upon someone who is desperate and vulnerable, because the entire premise is based on them getting you to agree to sell your home for less than what it's worth. This does not work for them any other way. Okay, there's no money to be made. Their entire way of making money is being able to get you to agree to a home that's worth this to sell it for this. And they extract value from your equity. That's the entire premise. Okay, let me explain that in better detail. So, this is how it usually happens, okay? And I've got a nice friendly like pro wholesaling kind of step list pulled up here, which is laughable. All right, so let's look at this, okay? So the wholesaling process: step 1, locate properties to buy; step 2, contact the owner; step 3, determine the property value; step 4, estimate repairs; step 5, negotiate a price and get the property under contract; step 6, locate a buyer for the property; and step 7, close the property. Okay, so this is a very like politically correct, positive vibe kind of like step process, probably to teach people how to become a wholesaler. And it's leaving out a lot of steps. Okay, so steps 1 through 3, this is basically the preying on vulnerable people process. Okay, you're looking for a particular type of person who is vulnerable, desperate, in a tough spot, that you can be able to basically prey upon and get them to agree to sell the property for less than what it's worth. Okay? So what happens in this process is most of the time they've done their research and they've determined the value of the property. They already know what your house is worth, roughly, and then they're going to reach out to you because they know you're in a tough spot. You know, you're 2 months behind on your mortgage. You just inherited a property you weren't inspecting to get. You know, your parent just died, and you're mourning, and now this property needs to be liquidated. Whatever, right? And so they know you're in a tough spot. I mean, there's lists you can pay for, that these guys pay for, to be able to get on these these notice lists where they can see if someone's 1 or 2 or 3 months behind on their mortgage, right? So there's all these ways they're finding these desperate sellers. And so after they figured out what the property's worth and they think you'd be a good candidate, they're going to reach out to you. And they're going to try to get you, just skip this and estimate repairs. This is bullcrap. I mean, sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't. It's not contingent at all. Most aren't doing this. Yeah, sometimes they'll go in and, they'll front money to renovate the property. We'll talk about that later. So after they've located you, they've determined you're the right kind of candidate, and they have an idea of what the home's worth, then they're going to reach out to you and they're going to negotiate. And this is where the real money is made, because the entire way they make money is getting you to agree to less than what your property is worth. And that in between is how they make money. Okay? And here's the kicker. This is how this all starts. So they're going to show up at your door or give you a phone call, and they're going to say, hey, I want to buy your property. That is a big, fat, freaking lie. They're full of crap. They're not buying your property at all. No, almost, I can't imagine, it wouldn't be wholesaling. Okay, no wholesaler is buying your property. And most are going to lie. Even they passed a rule back in 2024 where they're supposed to disclose this, and these guys are still not doing that most of the time. And so basically they tell you, hey, I want to buy your property. And you go, wow, okay, cool. And for whatever reason, you're in a tough spot, you need to sell, whatever. And they go, hey, and I'll do you one better. I'm going to pay cash. Lie number 2. Most likely these guys don't even have the cash to buy your property. And you go, wow, okay, cash. And they go, yeah, I'm going to give you this much money. And they go, wow, that's so exciting. Let's say your property's worth 200K and they say, I'll give you 120. And you go like, whoa, dude, why would I ever sell my property for so much less than what it is? And there's a lot of reasons for this, but it happens all the time. Like, I cannot tell you. These people half the time don't know what their property's worth. They're in a tough spot. They just lost a family member, right? They're sweating a foreclosure and they're freaking out. There's all these reasons why a lot of these people agree to sell their home for far less than what it is. And that's who I'm talking to regarding this, okay? That's who needs to watch out for these people, because there's a better way to do this, okay? And I'm going to discuss I'm going to tell you about how to do that. So basically, they show up, call you, whatever, and say, hey, I want to buy your property. I'm going to give you $120,000 cash with like a 2-week closing, right? And you go, wow, that's really appealing. That's way better than a foreclosure. Okay, let's do it. Okay? So then they get you under contract, right? So after that, let me get this pulled up. So after that, there it is. So after that, what happens is once they get you under contract, and remember, they told you, I want to buy your property, lie, and I want to pay cash. I'm going to pay cash, also lie. So once they get you under contract, then they actually got to start looking for a buyer. So they're this guy, and they're pretending to be this guy, right? But there's no buyer yet. That's the craziest thing. They're telling you, I want to buy your property, and they're getting you under contract. There isn't even a buyer yet, most likely. First they want to know they have a deal before they do any more work. So then once they get you under contract and you think this guy's buying your property for this amount of money for cash, then what these guys are going to go do is they're going to go shop around. They're going to call their network. They're going to shop your contract off, and they're going to call a bunch of these guys. And they're going to go, hey, I've got a pretty good property, off-market property, under, way good deal. Let's say it's worth 200K. They're going to go, hey, would you like to buy this property for $160,000? Pretty good deal, 40K less than what it's worth. And they're going to negotiate, and then they're going to land on the highest bidder. Someone says, oh no, I'll only do 120. And they go, oh, that I can't do that. There's no money made for that. And because they got you to agree to 120, right? And eventually, let's say they find someone to agree to buy it for $160,000, okay, which is 40K less than what it's worth. So remember, you agreed to sell it to them for 120, but the final actual buyer that this person shops out to is buying it for 160. So where's that difference go? That $40,000, 120 to this guy, 160 to the final buyer. Well, this middleman, this asshole, makes that $40,000. And where's that money coming from? It's your equity. They're extracting your equity out. That's the whole premise of how they make money. Okay? This is why they're full of crap. Why they don't add any value. So, line number 2, this final buyer, they might not even be paying cash. So you think one of the reasons you agreed to sell it for less a lot of the time is because it's cash, right? They go, hey, I know you're in a tough spot, and I know you need to close quick, and I'm gonna pay cash, so you need to work with me on the price. And you go, okay, all right, da 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 da. There's no guarantee this guy's even paying cash. The final buyer might be financing, right? They might be using, a hard money lender. They might be using a legitimate, OG bank, whatever, right? Might not even be paying cash. So the whole premise is a lie. Okay, so if you're a seller, right, again, the reason why you need to watch out for these people is because they've targeted you because you're a highly vulnerable, targetable candidate who is, for whatever reason, whether it's a foreclosure, an inheritance, you name it, you're vulnerable in a tough spot. You don't know what the property's worth, and they're taking advantage of you. Okay? The only way they make money is getting you to agree to sell the property for less than what it's worth. So, how can you avoid this? All right, as a seller, I'm someone who can speak on this because, one, I've been an agent for a long time, so I've dealt with these guys, and two, I ran a title company for 5 years. So I've worked with these guys on in multiple ways. And they just leave a bad, like a knot in my stomach. I hate working with them because at the end of the day, the seller is definitely the biggest loser out of all of this. Okay? And one of the easiest ways to avoid these guys, if you're someone who has a home and they're approaching you or you're considering selling, and you're looking to try to save money and avoid using an agent or something like that, is when these guys offer you, they show up at your door or give you a random phone call and they offer you cash for your home, chances are these guys don't have the cash to even do it. So, I mean, some of them will, but at least you can vet those people out, because you'd be shocked how many of these guys are closing on deals and making $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40,000 more, and they couldn't even buy your home if they wanted to. They have no intention of buying your home, and they don't even have the money in the bank. So as an agent, when I get a cash offer and I'm representing clients, the first thing I do is I ask for proof of funds. Okay? I want a screenshot of a bank account. I want a screenshot of a retirement account. I want to see that they have the money, the liquid money, to be able to buy that property. And you might not be comfortable doing that, but I'm very accustomed to it. It's what I do for a living. But that's what you need to do, is you can at least vet out these wholesalers who don't even have the potential to even buy your property, because they're lying to you and they're telling you they want to buy cash, right? So go, okay, I want proof of funds. Show me you can buy my property, that your offer is even legitimate. So that's a good way to filter out a lot of the bull crap, because the next step is really important, right? Because chances are, especially the ones who don't have the money, the contract you're going to be agreeing to, right, is favorable to them. They have probably very little skin in the game, very little earnest money, and I've seen these guys do basically like indefinite option periods, right? These option periods will last like to the very last day the contract expires, stuff like that, right? Which means basically that earnest money is never at risk. And so even if they put like $1,000 down or something like that, these guys don't have any skin in the game. And so chances are, if these guys are preying on you and you're a couple months behind on your mortgage, you're really depending on this deal to close, right? But this guy, if something comes up on title and there's an airship problem or cloud of title or whatever, right, that's preventing the closing, this guy doesn't have much skin in the game. He could kind of care less. And so, there's not a lot of skin in the game to encourage them to try to make this thing close. And so if it falls through, you don't get anything. You've wasted your time. And then maybe the bank forecloses on you and you're royally screwed. Okay? Here's one reason why working with an agent, you obviously don't have to work with me, but you can work with whoever, right? A good agent, right? So first and foremost, I'm going to make sure that the deal we agree to has as many advantages for you as possible, right? So I'm gonna explain option periods, earnest money, and I'm gonna make sure, for example, I have a deal right now, it's a cash deal for $1.57 million. And the earnest money is 15 grand and there's no option period, which means if the deal fails to close and it's at the fault of the buyer, my sellers will get that $15,000, which means if they've wasted 2 months and we have to go back to the market and now we have the stigma of, like, why didn't you close? Are you difficult people to work with? Is there a problem with the property? People are spooked, right? At least I got something out of it from my clients and they didn't waste their time, right? I got them 2 months worth of their time covered for getting under contract, locking up the property. They're not able to entertain other offers, etc. And so, that earnest money is skin in the game from the buyer and it's incentivizing them to try to make this thing close, to work with my clients, right? So chances are a wholesaler they've constructed a contract and an offer that is only advantageous to them and has very little incentive for you, right? If the deal falls through, they can just walk away scot-free and you get nothing, chances are, right? I mean, most wholesalers because a lot of these wholesalers, again, don't even have the money to sometimes they don't even have the earnest money, right? Like they don't even have the actual earnest money because they've created a scot-free contract that no matter what happens, all they're going to lose is their option money, which is usually like a couple $100 at most. Okay, so that's why as a seller, you need to watch out for these guys. It's a bad deal. Okay, so I'm going to go through the final kind of, how to set yourself up for success. What's the better alternative? And then I'm going to move to the buyers real quick and then end on, kind of like the internet gurus who are preying on all of these young, hungry people to become wholesalers and why I think you shouldn't do it. Okay, so the final wrap up for as a seller, what's the alternative? So for example, I've done this with several clients who were in the same situation. Rather than working with one of these, shady wholesalers, I got with these guys and we listed it for market value. And we got with the bank and said, hey, work with us, let's get, help to get my clients on a payment program, like an interest payment or something to the bank, and going, hey, like, we're selling this thing, work with me, help me get on a payment program. Here's the Netris listing, here's the Zillow link, here's the listing agreement. We're under contract, or we're on the market, we're selling this thing. So just work with me. What kind of payment plan can I get on? To avoid foreclosure, to buy time, so that instead of selling it for way, way, way less to one of these crappy wholesalers, you can sell it for market value and extract as much, and keep as much of that equity that you've built as possible. Okay? So as a buyer, moving on, as a buyer, keep in mind, this is short and sweet, but just keep in mind that you can end up as this person over here, as the final buyer, and you have no clue that this guy isn't even the owner and is making a spread. You could be potentially, helping someone make more money and not spending any more money, because this guy's just a bottom feeder. He's a middleman who's scalping a middle margin for little to no value. Okay, so just keep in mind that you could end up buying, and a lot of these people, cool, because they're still getting a good deal. If the property's for 200K and you're getting it for 160, you're getting it for 40K under market value. That's a good deal for you. But just keep in mind, there's probably a seller getting screwed, and you should watch out. Typically these things will look like someone who has an assignment contract. So you make an offer to this guy and put their LLC down on the offer, because now they have legal rights to be able to assign out the contract and sell the property, but they're not actually the owner. They're not the original seller. So you can watch out for those guys. Typically it's like a off-market property, way under market value, and it's like some LLC or something, or series or something like that. And so, sometimes you can avoid this guy altogether if you can find the actual seller once you're made aware of this deal, and try to circumnavigate this guy altogether. And the seller can get a much better deal, and you can still get a good deal. So it's a little bit more of a win-win situation. So just as a buyer, just watch out. You can end up in these and not realize it initially that you're a part of this. Now as like one of these, like, young guys who are, on the internet, and you're getting these YouTube and Instagram and Facebook advertisements to become a wholesaler and, pay for my online course and, become making 6 figures in 6 months or 12 months or whatever. Again, it's not that you can't make money. You can definitely make money doing this, no doubt. But I think the way we make money is more important than how much money we make. How we make money is more important than how much money we make. And so, keep in mind, very few people are, practicing transparency and honesty in this industry of wholesaling. The entire premise is a tough sell. So most people are lying. They're not disclosing the truth, which is they lie about wanting to buy your property. They're not buying it. And then they lie about cash. They don't have cash. Or even if they do, they're not giving you the cash. And their whole intentions is to get you to agree to terms that they take and then assign out to someone else, an actual buyer, and they make that spread. And that spread is your equity. Okay? They get you to agree, here's what your property's worth. They get you to agree for less, and then they sell it for somebody around here, and they make that spread, which is your hard equity that you've worked really hard to build. Okay, that sucks. So as a potential young person or hungry person looking for other ways to make money, if you're considering this, man, just know it's not a really great way to make money. It's a very disingenuous, because like, the alternative, like, okay, yeah, like I had a young friend who was like, oh, I'm going to become a wholesaler, but I'm different. I don't care about the money. I'm gonna, use it to, like, preach the gospel to them or something, which is okay, cool, great. But like, maybe find a better way to make your money and to be exposed to people, because like, you're probably not going to have a successful business, right? Like the entire premise of this, which can work, because like, let's use like an example, right? Let's say you're going to be completely transparent with them. How many people are going to agree to this? If you find these desperate people who need to sell quick, what's the alternative? If you're honest, right? You find them, you knock on their door, you call their phone, and you go, hey, I want to help you. I want to help you. Not I want to buy, but I want to help you. You're being honest. I want to help you sell your property. And they go, okay, how are you going to do that? And you go, well, I have a bunch of buyers that I can call who will probably buy it. And they go, okay, cool. So what do I need you for? And they go, oh, well, I want you to agree to sell your property to me. And you go, well, why would I do that? You're not going to buy it. And they go, yeah, well, I'm going to take that agreement and I'm going to go sell it to them for more money than what you agree to. And they're like, why would I do that? Oh, well, I know these people and you don't, and, maybe I can help you renovate. I'll front some of the money to renovate your property to make it a little nicer so we can sell it for a little bit more and you'll make a little bit more money too. And they're like, why wouldn't I just sell it directly to them? What do I need you for? And they go, well, I'm not going to tell you who those people are if you don't work with me and I don't make some money too. I need to get paid too. And they go, okay, fine. Let's say they even consider it. How much money do they think you should make for making 2 phone calls? You called them and then you call a final buyer, right? You connect the two, done. Then you're really not even involved anymore. You're not the final buyer. You're not actually buying the home, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm gonna, why don't you agree to 100,000 and I'm gonna sell it to them for 120? And they're like, 20K? You're gonna make 20K for like some phone calls? It's like, hell no, bro. That's bull crap. So you see where this is going, right? Like most people are not gonna agree to this. Even $5,000, $2,000, $3,000. It's like you didn't do anything. As an agent for like $150,000 property, it's like I'm only making like 3, 4, $5,000. It's like these guys are trying to make sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. So you're just better off using an agent or maybe even FISBOing or something. But, don't let yourself, so if you're one of these internet guys and this is an appealing concept to you, just know you can make money, but the way you make your money, like, do you want to sleep at night? Like how long, it's like, the whole strategy here is to get in, get out, make as much money as possible, get in, get out and go do something you can sleep with, you can feel good about, that you don't feel like you're just like extracting value for nothing. That's my whole point. That's why wholesalers are full of crap, bro. And that's why you should watch out for them. If you're a seller, you should avoid working with them. There's preventatives, be proactive. Watch out for these guys. You might not even be a desperate someone who's got like, behind on their payment. They might just show up at your door one day because you're in the right area and you're at the right price point. And there's people who want to buy these homes and tear them down and build, and they know they can find those people. So, watch out for these people. They knock at your door, they call you, and they offer you cash to buy your home and do these quick closings. A lot of the time, these people are wholesalers and they have no intention of buying your home. And you may be agreeing to far less than what your home's worth and giving up a lot of your hard-earned equity. If you want to sell your home, you're either better off doing it yourself and selling it on the market or using an agent and getting the full exposure. Okay, 2 buyers, just be aware that you can end up upon in these transactions without realizing it, buying from a wholesaler that you don't realize, and you're screwing over the original seller. And so, that could be a good deal for you, but just be aware of it and be aware that you're probably screwing someone over as well. You're a part of a shady deal, even though you might not be necessarily aware. You probably will eventually find out. And at that point, most people just, they go, okay, cool, because they're getting such a good deal, even though there's like a margin being made by the wholesaler. So be aware of that. And then 3, if you're, one of these, young guys or whoever on the internet and you're looking for a way to make some money, watch out for these online classes that, you pay a few $1,000s for, and they get you like an spreadsheet algorithm, and they teach you about wholesaling, because at the end of the day, you're learning to do something that is based on, disingenuousness, lies, preying on the vulnerable. It's not a good way to make money. You're really not adding value to the market. Lenders, real estate agents, escrow officers, buyers, sellers, inspectors, appraisers, these are all people who add value. They're providing a service and they're charging for it, right? And it's agreed upon, right? These guys, it's like there's so much disingenuousness, and they found this loophole in the system. It's not illegal, but it's like, it's just not right, in my opinion. They're full of crap, right? So watch out. If you found this valuable, I'd be happy to dive into this more in detail. If you have any questions, happy to make another video. But yeah, this is just, it's what I think. It's honest. I'll probably get critiqued for it and some pushback, but yeah, they're full of crap, man. They're full of crap, and they don't add value to the market. All they do is extract value from desperate people who are vulnerable and haven't done their research, don't know what their home's worth, or they're in these situations where they don't have time to do it, right? They've inherited a property, they're 3 months behind, about to be foreclosed on, and these people are in highly stressed scenarios. Buyers, watch out, because you might be a part of this transaction without realizing it. And all these online guys, man, just know that, if you're comfortable with making your money this way and behaving this way and being disingenuous and basically outright lying to people, that's really the only way this thing functions. And it's very hard to make money in this industry being fully transparent. The whole premise is getting someone to agree to far less than what the home's worth, which who in their right mind would ever do that? So there you have it. I hope y'all found this valuable, and I'll catch you on the next one. On my next video, I think once my closing happens, I'm gonna go through a step-by-step scenario, this really in-depth listing I've had, and all the drama, all the problems, all the ways I've had to hold. I've been holding this deal together through sheer freaking willpower and duct tape and shoestring. And I want to use this as an example of what agents go through, whether you're someone who's looking to become an agent, or you're a seller or a buyer who wants to see where the value is in working with a good agent and why it might be worth it versus not. So catch me on my next video. Hope to see y'all soon, and hope y'all stay blessed. Peace.